All right, good morning, everyone. The Woman, the Beast, and 666. Of the 30 papers or so that were submitted to this conference, there's only one paper that incorporates 666 into the title. And the reason is that I believe that Revelation 17 is an answer to Revelation 13, where it says, "Here is wisdom, let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And Revelation 17 is an answer to that command, and it's embedded in the wisdom statements of Revelation 13, which says calculate the number, and then the wisdom statement of Revelation 17, which is parallel to the wisdom statement in Revelation 13. The same words are used to initiate the wisdom statement. And then it proceeds to say, here are 7 heads, and these 7 heads are 7 mountains, and these are 7 kings. And then it goes on to talk about the scarlet beast, who was, who is not, and yet is, who is also the 8th and is of the 7. So this answer to the question, or the command to calculate, is embedded in the 7 heads. And so we're going to take a look at that this morning. And as we move forward here, I'm going to summarize the big picture here of these 3 chapters, Revelation 12, 13, and 17. Revelation 12 starts out with war in heaven, and it ends with war with a remnant. And Revelation 13 does the same thing. It begins with war, and it ends with a worship war. And the beast, whose number is 666, is involved in that worship war. And Revelation 17 is very similar. It begins with war, and it ends with the war with the Lamb. In this case, it's the scarlet beast, who is the 8th, and this 8th is parallel or corresponds to the 666 in Revelation 13. So it begins, each one begins with war, ends with war, and 666 and the 8th are part of that end-time war. This is a summary of, an early summary of some of the presentations on Revelation 17 given by our Adventist scholars, and you can see them here if you can read it. I'm not going to go through those in detail. I just wanted to point out here that each one of these presentations, they all incorporate the idea that the 7 heads are 7 political kingdoms, and that the political kingdoms of these 7 heads, they operate through the beast. So the beast and the 7 heads operate together. And in the majority of the presentations you've heard today or yesterday, that was the case. When you heard the presentations, the beast operated through the heads in almost every case. In this presentation, you will discover that we don't take that position. We take the position that the prophetic beasts of Daniel 7 and 8 are the prototype for interpreting the heads in Revelation 17. That is, when the head finishes his activity in Daniel 7, like the leopard, when the leopard goes off the scene, Alexander the Great, then the heads begin to operate. So there is a distinct difference if you adopt the prophetic principles of interpretation of Daniel 7 and 8, as opposed to the idea of just implying that the 7 heads are Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome, or whatever your position is. So this is a key point in this interpretation. We use the prototype of Daniel 7 and 8 for the interpretation of the heads. Okay, let's go on to the harlot woman. There's a name on her forehead, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the great city that reigns over the earth. The great city is divided into 3 parts, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. The dragon being Spiritism or paganism, the beast of Revelation 13 being papal Rome, and the false prophet apostate Protestantism. That's a typical point of view of the Seventh-day Adventist interpretation historically. And all 3 of these are under the leadership of the papacy. That is, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. That is, in the case of Spiritism, you know, you can include all pagan religions, Hinduism, Shintoism, and so on, all under the leadership of the papacy, and all secularism. The woman is further defined as it forms a church-state union, it fornicates, it's adorned with purple and scarlet, holds a golden cup in her hand, she's the mother of harlots, she's drunk with the blood of the saints, and John marvels when he sees the woman, and the whole world marvels. So all this evidence points to the Roman papacy, and of course this is all verified or supported with Great Controversy, page 382. This is nothing new. And mystical Babylon, the great city, as we've said, is a spiritual union, a threefold spiritual union in the last days. Now the key here is mystical Babylon deals exclusively in the last days, not historically over time. So we're dealing with the last days, and there's no linkage with the historical powers of Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. If we're dealing with mystical Babylon in the last days, there cannot be a connection with Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, or Rome, or Egypt and Assyria. And the woman is sitting on if the woman is sitting on seven historical heads, it's simply not possible because the mystical woman doesn't exist in that historical time frame. So let's summarize here with the scarlet beast. The common understanding is the scarlet beast represents a political entity, but there are similarities to the sea beast of Revelation chapter 13. Both have 7 heads and 10 horns, both blaspheme, both exist in 3 stages. Was, is not, yet is. The Revelation 13 beast, the sea beast, exists, persecutes, receives a deadly wound, then resurrected. Both make war, both are marveled by the world, and both manifest wisdom statements. So there's an identical parallel here to these 2 beasts. And in addition, the scarlet beast and the woman are both arrayed in scarlet, suggesting that the woman exists the same religious character as the beast. And so what does the scarlet beast represent? Well, it's our position that the scarlet beast represents the harlot in alliance with the kings of the earth. That is a persecuting church-state alliance. And when the woman sits on 7 heads, it's not the beast. So, Revelation 17 talks about a woman sitting on a beast, but when John sees, in the vision, he sees the picture, it looks like the woman is sitting on the beast, but actually the woman is sitting on the 7 heads. And of course, the angel interprets that properly in the interpretation. The woman is not sitting on the beast specifically, the woman is sitting on the 7 heads. So when the woman is sitting on the 7 heads, she is not the beast. So what I'm basically saying here is when the woman is in alliance with political powers, she is the scarlet beast. So the woman herself is the scarlet beast in alliance with political powers. When that relationship is broken, she's then sitting on those 7 heads. And the beast is dead. Just like the situation in Daniel 7. And so we have the beast that was and is not, yet is, and the sea beasts persecute, wounded, and then the wound is healed. So let's summarize the vision. The vision itself is a retrospective of the woman being drunk with the blood of the saints. And that's what we see when we read the vision in 1 through 6, or 3 through 6, the vision itself. We see the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. That's what how he concludes the passage there in verse 6. And this is a retrospective of the church alliance during the 1260-year period. So the vision is a retrospective. It's not what is currently happening. And then in the wilderness, when the woman and the beast are in the wilderness, the alliance is broken. So the vision itself, the time frame of the vision, is actually in the wilderness experience, post-1798. And the woman is then, historically now, she is drunk with the blood of the saints. That's her past experience. And she's sitting on the 7 heads. The church-state alliance is broken, but the church remains and is deprived of power. So what about the wilderness and the abyss? Ramos, meaning the wilderness, is an uninhabited area, desolate, a solitary place, applies to both the woman and the beast. The abusus, on the other hand, is the place of the dead. Now this abusus applies exclusively to the beast, because it receives a deadly wound, but the deadly wound is healed, it's resurrected. But it only applies to the beast itself. However, Ramos applies to both the beast and the woman, because both of them are, so to speak, in a solitary or desolate place. So the summary here, the beast was, is not, yet is. That was the was past experience with the 1260-year period, church-state alliance. The beast is not in the wilderness. The woman is sitting on the 7 heads now. Post-1798, there's no papal persecution, and there's no church-state alliance. And when the beast is resurrected, the beast yet is, the 8th, the church-state alliance is put together again, and that's just prior to the second coming. So what about the 7 heads? The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Verse 9, the woman exercises authority through the 7 heads. So the woman now, the harlot, is sitting on those 7 heads, and she's exercising authority through those 7 heads. And these are also 7 kings. Now, these 7 kings are not the kings of the earth. There's a distinction, I believe, in Revelation 17 and also throughout Revelation, where there are kings of the earth, political kings, but there are other kings that are not political kings. So these kings are not political kings. They are, in this case, religious kings. And that's why the phrase kings of the earth are not used. These 7 heads are 7 kings, period. The 7 heads function after the beast is wounded, and it follows the prototype of Daniel 7, as I pointed out. And a summary of the interpretive guidelines for Daniel 7 and 8. When the heads and the beast they do not function simultaneously, the heads are active when the beast is inactive. And the heads derive from the beast. If the beast is political, the heads are political. If the beast is religious, the heads are religious. And all the heads appear simultaneously unless there's an exception. And of course, here's the typical picture you've all seen in your Revelation seminars with Greece, the leopard, and the 4 heads that operate after the leopard goes off the scene. And here's a summary of the three-stage activity of first the beast, then the heads, and then the 10 horns. So in the was situation, the beast is active. In the is not situation, the heads become active. And in the yet is situation, the 10 horns become active. So there's a sequence. First the beast, then the heads become active after the beast goes off the scene. When the heads go off the scene, then the 10 horns come on. Now the 2 wisdom statements. Now you notice here that the 2 wisdom statements in the orange color they're almost identical. The word understanding or mind is the Greek word nous. So in one case it's understanding, in the other case it's the mind. Here is the mind that has wisdom, and this is the answer to the command to calculate the number of the beast. Now, here's the answer. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. And the beast that was and is not is himself also an 8th, and is of the 7, and is going into perdition. There's the answer, and the answer is embedded in what I just read. How do we calculate the number of the beast? The resurrected beast is identified by calculating the number 666, and the resurrected scarlet beast, yet is identified as an 8th. And so the 2 resurrected beasts are identical. The first is called the 666 man. The second is called an 8th king. The 8th has its origin in the 7 kings, and the calculation of 666 is embedded in the 7 kings, totaling 665, where the 8th brings you to 666. So we get we predict that the number 665 should come from the calculation of those 7 heads. Well, let's see if that's true. Now, this is just a proposition. Of course, we didn't understand this when we first looked at it, but this is how it turns out. Okay, what about wisdom and mountains? The 7 heads or 7 mountains or 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. The mountains in Babylonian worship, the 7 heads, 7 mountains, we believe these 7 mountains are religious, or 7 heads are religious entities, as I've already pointed out, and mountains and high places in ancient Near Eastern culture. They were places of worshiping for their gods, and that practice of the pagans was adopted by Israel. And the ziggurat structures, this is according to Hans Biedermann, of Mesopotamia were archaeological architectural translations of divine mountains, and the mountain is the abode of the gods. And this is an example of the Temple of Akur. It was the abode of the gods, and were involved the worship of Enlil, which was the highest god, and this had an influence on Greek culture as well, Mount Olympus, and of course the abode of the pantheon of 12 gods. So this is how we handle the issue of mountains. Worshiping of gods. And here you see this idea in Scripture, in Deuteronomy and 2 Kings and Ezekiel, many other places. They went to the high places and worshiped all the host of heaven. So this same practice was adopted by Israel. And now we know, of course, that Revelation 17 has included in it, basically it's in a Babylonian motif. And this Babylonian motif, of course, Babylon's divided the heavens into 36 constellations and a ruling god for each one of the constellations. And this is the reason for the sanctity of the number 36 in a Babylonian culture. And of course, this is the sexagesimal numbering system based on the base number of 60. And it also involves triangular numbers. Now, a triangular number, for example, would be 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus down the line to 1. And if you add up those numbers, you end up with 36. And you can do that with any number. That's called a triangular number. And this is an example schematically of what triangular numbers look like. It's basically an equilateral triangle, and you count the number on the side, and you can calculate any triangular number from a base number. For example, 4, the triangular number from 4 would be 10, and it's simply n plus 1, 5 plus 1 times 4 is 20 divided by 2 is 10, and so that would be the triangular number. So there's a triangular number for every number, there's a triangular number. But triangular numbers are unique. Not every number is a triangular number. This is called a Babylonian amulet. It was a magic amulet, and the Babylonians considered this amulet to be magical. It could protect them from harm. And the 36 numbers had to be organized in only one specific way. And if they were, then all the horizontals would add up to 111. All the verticals would add up to 111. And if you added 6 times 111, you end up with 666. Do the same thing with the horizontals, you end up with 666. That's why it was a magical number. And the Babylonian motif continues here with the mountain that had 36 constellation gods. If you added up the triangular number of 36, based on the number 36, the triangular number from 36 is 666. And that's for one head or one mountain. But if you have seven mountains, then you would have 7 triangular numbers. And in this case, we're talking about 7 mountains or 7 heads, so there should be 7 triangular numbers. Well, let's take a look here. So of 82 popes that exist, 36 names have been taken by 2 or more popes or lines of popes. Exactly 7 lines of popes remain since 1798. Only 7 lines of popes remain since 1798. Now, this is not just and by accident. It was ordained by God that there would only be 7 lines of popes remaining since 1798. And these 7 heads, 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. Well, what are they? Well, the 7th head, which had not yet come, would appear sometime after 1798. Sometime after 1798, the 7th head would appear. Is that the case? Well, indeed it is. Here are the 7 heads that have existed since 1798. Pius, Leo, Gregory, Benedict, John, Paul, and John Paul. The first 6 already existed. But John Paul had not existed. It didn't exist until he came on the scene, and when Pope John came on the scene, and that was in 1978. So all the other ones existed historically. Pope Pius started in 140, Leo in 440, and so on. So they all existed except one, the yet is. And here are the triangular numbers: Pius, Leo, Benedict, and so on. So there's the triangular numbers: 1 through 12, 78, 1 through 13, 91, and so on. For Pope Paul, 1 through 6, triangular number 21. For John Paul, it would be 1 plus 2 equals 3. And guess what? It all adds up to 665. Now that is absolutely phenomenal. There's just no way that this is an accident. So the improbability of 7 lines of popes since 1798, extremely small. The probability that the count would terminate exactly at 665 with the 7th head is infinitesimal. This simply is expressive of God's foreknowledge. The interpretation is self-authenticating. The interpretation is self-authenticating. The interpretation itself bears evidence within itself of its divine origin. This is the only interpretation that is self-authenticating. God ordained this particular outcome. This is not an accident. This cannot be just the way John put together the interpretation. So the identity of the revived beast, the 8th, and the beast that was and is not himself is also an 8th and is of the 7th. The 8th is a single individual distinct from the 7 heads or mountains of gods. The 8th comes out of the 7 heads, and the 8th is a king whose number we believe is 666. Now I'm going to deal a little bit with the preposition ek. It denotes separation or coming out of something, and if you look carefully at the preposition ek, when it deals with a group of people or a group of any sort, it always implies that the group is homogeneous. Now, if you look at Thayer's lexicon, or BDAG, you'll discover if you look carefully at when ek is used with a group of individuals or any kind of a group, that group is always homogeneous. It is not heterogeneous. So that means that a group cannot be a combination of political and religious individuals or entities. The group must be homogeneous. And of course, that's the case in this particular situation. The 8th must be of the same form and function of the 7 heads. And of course, this contradicts the typical 7 ancient kingdom position. The 8th is distinct from the 7 heads. The 8th appears with one of the 7 heads, the names of one of the 7 heads. And so when the 8th comes on the scene, it will initially take the name of one of the initial 7 heads. And then ultimately, if he in fact is the 8th, he will change his name. So the 8th has to have a different name ultimately, but we know that it comes out of the 7 heads. So it initially takes the name of one of the 7 heads, but then when it comes to the point where he's going to become the 8th, he then changes his name, takes a new name. Well, Benedict XVI was a candidate because he appeared after the 7 heads. He was a candidate for the 8th, but he never changed his name. He died, and that locked up the system. Okay, let's go on here quickly. But when Cardinal Prevost came on the scene, what did he do? Miraculously, he chose the name of Leo, which is one of the 7 heads. He could have chosen any other name, but he chooses one of the 7 heads. So this simply means if Leo changes his name, Leo the 14th, he will become the 8th. Well, we don't know if that's going to happen, but he is certainly a candidate for that to happen. Now, you know that things are happening very rapidly right now, and you know what Leo is doing, if you keep an eye on what he's doing. Okay, well, here's the summary, and the new unique name from 666 would take us from 665 to 666. Okay, we're going to go a little bit quicker here. The 10 horns or 10 kings have received no kingdom as yet. They receive a kingdom authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. The 10 horns are derived from the 7 heads. They do not function until the 8th appears. The 10 horns are religious powers. They are the daughters of the harlot. So the 10 horns are basically apostate Protestantism and the daughters of the harlot. And of course, we have letter 232, 1899 from Ellen White, where she's pretty clear that those 10 horns are in fact apostate Protestantism. The Reformation is canceled when that happens. When the 8th comes on the scene, the Reformation is canceled, and the world wanders after the beast. And you read that directly from the description of the 10 horns in those 2 verses. And they unite in war against the Lamb. The 10 horns and the beast unite in war against the Lamb. Now, this is not Armageddon. This war against the Lamb precedes Armageddon. This is a war dealing with the image to the beast and worshiping the beast and taking the number 666 and being killed if you don't do it. This is the war that's being referred to here. She makes that clear in 3 selected messages, page 392, that this is not Armageddon. The 10 horns, following the unsuccessful war with the Lamb, the 10 horns realize they've been deceived by the beast. They turn on the harlot, they burn her with fire, etc. And the 10 horns hate the harlot. And just to be quick, I'm not have time to go through it all, but this is not the beast and the 10 horns hating the harlot. This is only the 10 horns that hate the harlot. And they give their kingdom to the beast. So if you read the verses correctly, the 10 horns hate the harlot, and then they give their kingdom to the beast. Now, if you read that text that the 10 horns and the beast hate the harlot, then the beast turns on the beast itself. Then you have an oxymoron. And you can read that more clearly in the paper that is on the line there. And the 10 horns hate the harlot, but the kings of the earth do what? They lament the harlot. So there's a difference between the 10 kings and the 10 horns. Okay, we're going to finish on time. Good. Okay, here are the conclusions. Revelation 12, 13, and 17 is an integrated package. The harlot, Babylon, it's a last day entity, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. The scarlet beast is the harlot in alliance with the kings of the earth. So the harlot is basically the scarlet beast in alliance. And the 7 heads and the 10 horns are religious entities. They follow the interpretive scheme of Daniel 7, and this supplants the 7 ancient kingdom theory. And furthermore, the wisdom statements point to the 7 heads to calculate the number 666. And we recognize the Babylonian motif of Revelation 17 in worship with the 7 mountains and the triangular numbers. And this enables the calculation of 666. And the new pope that takes the name of one of the 7 lines then changes his name to the 8th, becomes the one whose number is 666. And that concludes the presentation.
How many of us want to thank Dr. John Peters for his presentation? Now we're going to take about 20 minutes to ask some questions, and I'm going to ask Hugo if he could help me also with a mic, and I'll take a mic and you'll answer.
Hands here.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Peters, for your presentation. I have a few questions, but I think the most important one is you said that the heads.
You have to speak up clearly because I'm a little bit hard of
Okay.
hearing.
You said the 7 heads are religious entities.
The 7 heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you compare them with the heads on the Greece leopard.
But they're not religious.
Yeah, in terms of functionality, yes.
In terms of, but the heads on the Greece leopards were political, weren't they?
They're what?
They were political entities. They were political, yes, the accent, yes.
Yeah.
They were governments of Greece.
Yeah. So, in Revelation 17, they're religious. In Daniel 7, they're political, yeah. But I'm talking about the functionality, how they function in relationship to the beast and the heads. That's all I'm dealing with there.
Okay. I have another question about the leopard's 4 heads. You said that the leopard's 4 heads appeared, that's what I understood, pardon me, after the leopard got off the scene.
When the leopard is in Alexander the Great, when he dies, then the 4 heads begin to operate.
So the leopard is not Greece. The leopard is Alexander the Great. And its 4 heads are the generals.
4 generals, yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I really commend you for connecting. Yes, I really commend you for connecting 666 with Babylon. Okay, even closer. Oh, okay. So I really commend you for connecting 666 with Babylon, with sexagesimal system. I just want to add that in Daniel 3, we have the statue, right? 60 cubits high, 6 cubits wide. So is there also a connection? And now, for me, reading the data that you presented, it became more natural to connect the harlot, or the woman that sits on the beast, which is Babylon the Great, with this number 666, which goes further to support the idea that the woman and the image to the beast is one of the same entity, because it imposed 600, or imposed this mark. So why do you reject this idea that 666 is more connected with the icon and is the same with Babylon, when so natural comes from your data?
I'm sorry, I couldn't assimilate what you were saying. I'm sorry about that.
So last part, the why 666.
So the question is...
Mark, could you summarize it for him?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I use the other. Do you understand me now? Do you understand me?
I understand, yeah.
So the question is, since 666, you connected with Babylon.
Yeah.
And there in Revelation 17, you have Babylon the Great as a city and as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So why you don't naturally connect 666 with the woman and Babylon, being the same entity with the icon to the beast in Revelation 13, and not necessarily with the beast that the woman rides on?
Yeah.
It comes more naturally for me hearing you.
Yeah. The woman's number is 666 as well, because the woman is the scarlet beast. So if the scarlet beast is 666, the woman is also 666 because she is the scarlet beast. Scarlet beast is the woman plus political alliance or political kings. So the woman is the scarlet beast. So the woman is sitting on the 7 heads. Then she's not the scarlet beast because the political alliance has been broken. So this is why it's called a mystery. This is a part of the mystery. that the woman herself is the scarlet beast, except when the alliance is broken, then she's simply the church.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have many questions, but I will choose on. So you showed on slides Babylon amulet. So what years do you date this amulet, and what evidence do you have that they are connected to Babylon?
I'm sorry, again, I'm having trouble. Mark, could you help me?
He's asking about the amulet with the
About
30,
about what?
the amulet, the 1 through
okay.
36, and
Yeah.
how that's connected with Babylon.
Okay.
What years do you date?
Oh, what year?
What years do you date this amulet?
When was the amulet made, basically?
I don't have that date, but, and by the way, there is disputes about this amulet, whether in fact it was part of Babylon or not. There are many who believe it is or was. There's some that do not. But the amulet did exist. Whether it was connected with Babylon specifically is a question that's disputed. But as far as the date, I don't have that information.
So they are dating by Middle Ages. And I would like to recommend you to read the chapter in the book about 666 by author Edwin Koch. He's criticized these assumptions that these amulets has origin and connection with Babylon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I could have left the amulet out of this presentation, and it wouldn't have affected anything.
Yes, thank you so much for all of your diligent labor and your work. I mean, that is impressive that you're able to calculate and find all these things, and I surely appreciate that. The question I have is, I was trying to figure out, you had Francis there, but I missed it somewhere. Could you answer that? Where does he belong in that system?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Francis is basically irrelevant. Likewise, with Benedict, when he did not take the name of one of the seven, he became irrelevant. So any pope that comes along after the seven heads are closed up or locked, they become irrelevant if they don't take the name of one of the seven, or if they do take the name of one of the seven and they never change their name, they become irrelevant. In other words, they don't apply. You can't add, for example, you can't add Benedict the 16th to the numerical sequence. It doesn't change because he is simply out of the scene. The 665 locks up. It's like a closed bank after John Paul II. It closes up at 665.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Peters. That was absolutely brilliant. My question here is, verse 7, the woman and the beast that carries her. So you said the woman is the political powers plus the church together. Is that right?
The woman is the religious power, and the beast, when she unites with political kings, then she becomes the scarlet beast.
Okay, so the two together. Okay, thank you very much.
I'm Warren Johns. I was seminary librarian, and I still keep up on the literature. And recently, in the last, few years, two scholars came up, they're Old Testament scholars, came up with a new interpretation of 666. I haven't heard it discussed among Adventists yet. You go to 1 Kings 10:14. The weight of gold that came to Solomon yearly was 666 talents of gold. Mm-hmm. There it is, the first mention in the Bible of 666.
Right.
And then it goes on to describe how he had traveling merchants and he had traders from all parts of the then known world and from Arabia. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is leap from there, it's a big leap, to Revelation 18. And there's a whole bunch of commerce and ships and sailors and tradesmen. And I see a little reflection of what was happening with Solomon. So maybe we want to expand our view, and I appreciate your view, it's fascinating. Expand our view and look at one or two other dimensions that may have relevancy. Your comments?
Good point. I appreciate that, and I agree with you.
So, thank you, John. Just a question of clarification again. I heard you say two different things, but I may have misunderstood, so I'm asking clarification. You talk about the fact that the 7 heads are contemporaneous, and at the same time you say that 5 have fallen, 1 is, and another's still coming.
Right.
Could you help me?
Yeah, they're contemporaneous only because, let's go back to that slide. Let's see here. The Pius, Leo, Gregory, John, and Paul all existed historically. So historically, the first 6 lines of popes already existed. However, after 1798, there's a new Pius that comes along. There's a new Leo that comes along. There's a new Gregory that comes along after 1798. So they are contemporaneous in terms of history, but not in terms of actual appearance with a new pope taking that name line. So that's the reason they're contemporaneous, but then they exist, they appear one after another after 1798.
So, which one would be the one that is?
The one that is would be Pope John Paul, or Pope Paul, excuse me. Yeah.
Pope Paul, why would he be the one that is?
Well, actually, you could say that all of them is because they all exist simultaneously after 1798. So they all except the 7th, they all exist after 1798. So 5 have fallen, 1 is, and so the 1 is simply just an announcement. Look out! Here comes the 7th, who's not yet happened, and Paul is the one that announces the coming of the 7th.
Do you think John would have understood this?
No. Absolutely. In fact, I don't think John understood any of this. This was given to him by the angel. The angel interpreted, but John did not understand the interpretation. The angel gave him the interpretation. He didn't necessarily have to understand it. This idea that the person receiving the vision has to understand it, I don't believe that's the case. You can find examples in Daniel 7 where that is not the case.
Well, so if you want to hear about triangular numbers, come to my presentation this afternoon.
Okay, good.
Can you please make a comment? Can you please make a comment on the idea that Revelation then is not a sealed book, yet John did not understand it in his context, but in terms of being not sealed compared to Daniel, which was sealed. Can you just make a comment on that, please?
Yeah. Well, Revelation is not sealed, but this interpretation was sealed until Pope Paul existed, and then John Paul II came on the scene. When that all happened, then this interpretation began to be understood. So yes, this interpretation was not understood until around 2002. There was some inkling that this might be the case. And then when Pope Paul came on the scene, it started to unfold. So from that point of view, this interpretation was sealed.
We'll have one last question here.
I appreciate all the thought you've put into this. My question is,
in Revelation 15, it shows a group standing on the sea of glass who've gotten the victory over the beast, his mark, his image, and finally the number of his name. Can you comment on the connection you've made with the number of the beast and getting the victory over that? Because I feel like no matter if I'm right or wrong about certain interpretations, I don't want to miss this point.
Yeah, I have a little problem with that myself. They get the victory over the number of the beast. Well, I can only speculate that it has something to do with not being infatuated with the one whose number is going to be 666. In other words, don't be infatuated with the charisma, the personality of this new pope that's going to have the number 666. Don't be overwhelmed with him. Don't be attracted to him, et cetera, et cetera. Those would be the ones who have the number 666. They get the victory over the number.
I want to thank Dr. John Peters once again for his presentation, for his answers, and you can continue to ask him questions after our break. So now we're going to take